I'm getting baptized today because I've devoted my life to Jesus, God's one and only Son. I feel good knowing that God is looking out for me. I can trust Him. I know He is always there, and He always will be.
That I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
I want to be baptized today so I can fully accept Christ in my life. And I want to continue to build a stronger relationship with God as I head into high school.
Based on your profession of faith, hold on, stand up, there we go. He really wants to do this. Based on your profession of faith, we baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Based on your profession of faith, I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
I need Jesus back in my life before I continue to ruin relationships that I need to start healing. Because you confess Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, I now baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Welcome to our service. My name is Carol Hoy, and I'm the Women's and Groups Pastor here at Willowdale, and I am so glad you're joining us today. If you're tuning in for the first time or have recently joined our online community, we would love to know who you are. So please take a moment to visit our website and click the I'm New button to learn a little more about us. And while you're there, please fill out our connections card and tell us how we might help you get connected into our church family. As you just saw from the highlight video, a few weeks ago we had Baptism Sunday, where we celebrated the baptisms of 23 followers of Christ across our Kennett, Jennersville, and Willowdale and Espanol communities. It was such an awesome day for our church that we wanted to share it with you, and also let you know that we will be holding another baptism service on Sunday, July 31st. So if you're interested in getting baptized, visit our website to learn more or come out and join us on July 31st. Now, before we conclude our series, Reach, an invitation into God's mission, and hear a message from our senior pastor, Greg Lafferty, would you join me as we sing and prepare our hearts to respond to God's word?
us, O God, what is good. You have shown us, O Lord, what you require. You have heard all our songs, how we long to worship you. Yet you told us the offering you desire. To do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, God. You said to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, God.
You have shown us the riches of your love. You have shown us your heart for those in need. Lord, you're opening our ears to the cries of the poor. You have called us to be your hands and feet. To do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, God.
You said
To do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, God.
to the oppressed and the broken, to the widow and the orphan, let the river of your justice flow through us.
To the oppressed and the broken, to the widow and the orphan, let the river of your justice flow through us.
Let the river flow. Let the river flow. Let the river of your justice flow through us. Yes,
To do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, God.
you said
To do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, God. To do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with you, God.
Well, hey everyone, I'm so glad you're with us today. Thanks for taking in our online service. And I'm eager to open God's Word with you today, as I always am. But let me just start today by telegraphing my purpose. My big, hairy, audacious goal for this sermon is that you would live a really good life. That you would be a really good person. Now, you could say, isn't that basically the point of every sermon? You're helping me to live the abundant life that Jesus offers? And the answer is yes, but I'm really dialed into that today. I want you to live a good life. I want you to be a good person. And isn't that really what we all want? We all want to be good people. We want to live a good life. Not just the good life, ease and pleasure, but like a really good life. A life that's rich in meaning and purpose. One day, we all want God to say to us, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Wouldn't that be awesome to hear from the mouth of God someday? We all want it. But now, here's the big question. What makes that good life? What makes a good person? In what does a good life consist? It's not an easy question to answer. It's pretty complicated. You probably don't have a definition of the good life like ready on your lips, but let's think about it a little bit. Let me help you out. Why don't we use a Venn diagram? You got those three intersecting circles, and let's say where the three circles intersect, that's the good life. So what do you put in the three circles? What are the values or the purposes or the practices that are going to add up to a good life? We're coming up on July 4th, and if we could ask Thomas Jefferson, he might say, easy, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a good life right there. Others of our peers these days, as the 4th approaches, they might, fill in the Venn diagram with like God, guns, and family, right? We're going to see those t-shirts around. Like that's the good life in their estimation. One Republic wrote a song some years back called Good Life. And if you know the lyrics to that song, they might fill in the diagram with like, well, new city, new friends, and nightlife. That's the good life. Well, we could have a lively debate about how to fill in the diagram, but why don't we just let God tell us? There was actually a time when God was in not just a lively debate, but like a contentious court argument with his people. They were not seeing good life at, eye to eye in these days. Things had gotten really bad in the Old Testament nation of Israel, and it was kind of going from bad to worse. And the people are frustrated. They're like, God, we're doing all this stuff for you. We observe the Sabbath, we go to the temple, we fast and we pray. It seemed to us you promised that if we did those things, you would bless us with a good life, and it's not happening. It's not working. And you and all your requirements are wearying us. And God's like, oh, I'm wearying you, am I? You've got a bone to pick with me, do you? No, I've got a bone to pick with you. In fact, I'll take you to court right now. And God summons the mountains and the foundations of the earth as his witnesses. Like they've seen it all. And God says, so I'm wearying to you. The God who brought you out of the land of slavery. The God who gave you good leaders like Moses and Aaron and Miriam. It's hard to follow a God like me, huh? The one who, when an evil king hired a false prophet to curse you, I turned the curses into blessings. It's hard to follow somebody like me who does that. You remember how I brought you miraculously across the Jordan River, out of the wilderness, into the promised land. That in itself was a miracle. You remember that? Oh, you have a hard time serving a God like me? And the people turn around, it's like, well, what more do you want from us? What do you want? Mountains of sacrifices? Rivers of oil? You want me to give my firstborn for the sin of my soul? What do you want? And God tells him what he wants. And he fills in the Venn diagram. Let's listen to how it goes in Micah chapter 6. Hear what the Lord says. Arise, plead your case before the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. God says, hear, you mountains, the indictment of the Lord, and you enduring foundations of the earth. For the Lord has an indictment against his people, and he will contend with Israel. Oh, my people, what have I done to you? How have I wearied you? Answer me. For I brought you up from the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of slavery. And I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Oh, my people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, devised, and what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him, turned curses to blessings. Remember what happened from Shittim to Gilgal when miraculously you crossed the Jordan River, that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord. And the people were like, well, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? What do you want from me, God? And Micah, speaking for God, has the last word. He's told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And it's a beautiful word of the Lord, isn't it? You know, Micah 6:8 has been called by some scholars the most beautiful verse in the Old Testament. And that's kind of ironic because the word good there, the good life that God describes, actually carries the idea of pleasantness and beauty. It's not just good in the moral sense, it's good in like the exquisite sense. It's the same word used in Genesis 1 as God evaluates his creation day by day, and he sees all that he's made and he says, and it's good. It's not moral, it's just beautiful and perfect and functional. It's like, that is so good. And God says, a good person, a good life, a good church that's involved in building a good community. Here are the three circles. You do justice, you love kindness or mercy, and you walk humbly with your God. Justice, kindness, humility. It's not complicated, but it's so good and beautiful. So let's just break these down. And by the way, you can look at this not just as a Venn diagram, but really as concentric circles, because it moves from the outside in, from action, doing justice, to like emotion, loving kindness, feeling that, to the central motivation, which is knowing God, walking with God, walking humbly with Him, which is the only way to walk when you're walking with God. So let's just look at these one by one. Starts with doing justice. Oh, Willowdale, let's reclaim this word. It's our word. It's a biblical word. I know a lot of people get real tweaky, especially in religious circles, when you're talking about justice, especially if you throw the word social on front of it. But this is our word, justice. God has given us this word. It's used over 200 times in the Old Testament. I personally kind of feel about justice the way I feel about the rainbow. Like, hey, the rainbow is ours and I don't want anybody else to co-opt it. But so many people do, right? Especially in the month of June, in Pride Month. It's like, we're gonna take the rainbow and slap it on our own pride and sexual self-assertion. And I'm like, hey, wait a second, give that back. You know, I mean, I don't want anybody of any sexual persuasion to be abused, you know, or violated, but you can't have the rainbow, you know, to kind of, you know, wave your flag. That's our rainbow. That's our symbol of God's mercy and salvation. I feel the same way about justice when people co-opt justice. It's like, wait a second, the Bible gives us the concept of justice. It gives us the very word, and it is a rich and full and beautiful thing. You don't even know justice unless you know justice biblically. So let's break it down, because justice consists of really three constituent parts. And the first one is fairness. That's really the most obvious. We know that when things are just, they're fair, they're equitable. And the Bible just calls, you know, people and society to fairness on all fronts. In the marketplace, in the courts, in relationships. You know, in the marketplace, there's to be honest weights and measures. We're never cheating anybody. We're never putting a thumb on the scale. In the courts, there's no bribery. There's no favoritism. There's just equal justice under the law. In relationships, we're never powering up on others. We're never abusing them. We want fairness and justice in relationships. And God gives all sorts of laws that are meant to establish this. And that's kind of, you know, basic and common, but it doesn't mean it's not radical too. Because I think God was very forward thinking, if you will, in the Old Testament in the book of Leviticus. When, for example, he says, "You shall have the same rule for the foreigner and for the native born, for I am the Lord your God." And where laws or rules or practices are different for different groups, depending on status and privilege, God says, that's not fair. That's not just. But now, fairness is really only the beginning of the biblical concept of justice, of mishpat. That's the Hebrew word. This word also carries the idea of fullness. Because see, justice is envisioned by the biblical concept of shalom, which is, fullness and flourishing. And it's where someone is not like full and flourishing, that injustice has made it that way, because God made the world and made human beings in his image to be full and flourishing. It's an injustice when that doesn't happen. Whether, somebody violates and perpetrates a crime on somebody else, or when the enemy of our souls, Satan himself, has despoiled life in some way, and other outside forces keep us from flourishing. Whatever the source, it ultimately is a kind of injustice. And so true biblical justice has a vision of shalom, of fullness. And so it doesn't just do the bare minimum. It doesn't just give somebody like kind of simply and woodenly what's their due, but it's looking to be restorative, to bring a person to fullness and flourishing. Think, for example, of the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? This Good Samaritan finds a man bloodied and beaten on the side of the road. He's been abused by criminals. Injustice has been perpetrated on him. And the Good Samaritan really goes above and beyond to restore this man. In Jesus' parable in Luke 10, it says that the Good Samaritan had compassion on him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, which had medicinal purposes, but just that sounds kind of lavish, doesn't it? And then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him the rest of that day. And the next day, he took out 2 days' wages and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay when I come back." I'm not even going to make this guy repay his medical bills. I'm going to take care of it. That is like a radical, lavish care. And it's really a picture of restorative justice. And this is what God is about all the time. He is the God of justice. Psalm 146 says, "The Lord executes justice for the oppressed and gives food to the hungry. The Lord sets prisoners free. The Lord gives sight to the blind. The Lord lifts up those who are bowed down. The Lord loves righteousness. The Lord watches over the foreigner and sustains the fatherless and the widow. But he frustrates the ways of the wicked." Because you know what? That's just too. It's not right ultimately that the wicked flourish. They might for a season, but God's going to see that they get their recompense, just as he does his restorative justice on behalf of all who are oppressed or are in need. This is justice, fairness, fullness, but there's one other element, and I'll call it fellowship. You see, justice is not just doing fairness or even being, generously, offering fullness, doing that from a distance, but it's like getting really personally involved, coming alongside those who hurt, knowing them there, weeping with those who weep, finding a kinship and a relationship and a personal connection there. That ultimately is an expression of justice, and it comes straight out of God's own character. Listen to this in Psalm 68. And as you listen to this, think about maybe kind of an old school MC in a club getting ready to introduce the big star. And here's the hype man. "Sing to God, sing in praise of his name. Extol him who rides on the clouds, rejoice before him. His name is the Lord. A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling." I love this. God doesn't just ride on the clouds. He's down where the fatherless and the widows and the orphans and the poor and the aliens and the estranged, he's down where they live. And it's all part of actually who he is. He so identifies. In fact, in the book of Proverbs, God so identifies with the poor that whoever insults the poor insults the Lord. On the other hand, whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord. So this is God's justice, fairness, fullness, and a fellowship, a real connection with people in need. Now, if we're ever going to be that kind of good people, it's going to be way more than just what we do on the outside, right? There's going to have to be like some emotional power, horsepower on the inside. And that's why we got to fill in that second circle in our diagram of the good life with loving kindness. We love kindness, or as the older translation says, we love mercy. The Hebrew word is the word chesed. It's kind of got that sound at the beginning, chesed. It's often translated mercy, but also kindness or loving kindness. It's kind of good-heartedness. Chesed is basically the Old Testament equivalent of the New Testament Greek word agape, this others-oriented, self-giving love. And it's really what God expresses in everything that he does. It just always comes out of a heart of love. You could go look up Psalm 136, I think is the best example of this. Psalm 136 is this kind of long poem about all God's works in creation and redemption. And every line, God created the universe. And then after one line of what God does, it says, his love endures forever. His chesed endures forever. God created the universe. His love endures forever. He put the stars in the sky. His love endures forever. He saved us from slavery in Egypt. His love endures forever. Whatever God does, it's an expression of his love. And the good life that we're invited into in him just has love right there at like the emotional center of our lives. It's like we just want to set that as our default. It's like, what would be the kind, merciful, loving thing? You got a decision to make? What would be the kind, merciful, loving decision? You're in some kind of dilemma, you're in doubt about something. Well, you just default to kindness, mercy, and love. And now, the only way we're going to have that at the emotional level is we got to go to the core and we got to go to the third circle. And that is we're walking humbly with our God. We just so want to be close to him and know him. We're so captivated and enthralled by him. He's God, for goodness sakes. We're not, but we get to be close to him. And so we walk humbly with him. Now, that word humble doesn't just mean what we think of as humble, like sort of self-effacing. We're not even really thinking about ourselves. We're just kind of small in the presence of greatness. It's that, but it's also like care and attentiveness. In fact, some translators render the word carefully. Walk carefully with your God. Because my goodness, it's God. You want to take care in how you're living next to him. You want to be attentive to him. It's about him, right? And not that you're kind of just cowering and small. You're just honored to be there. I mean, think of it this way. Let's say you're at a VIP dinner. You're not the VIP, but there are VIPs at the table. In fact, the Golden State Warriors, they just won the NBA championship last week. And let's just say that you somehow get invited to the championship dinner table. And you are at the table with the Golden State Warriors. It's an awesome privilege. You know this is not about you. This is about them. And that's just fine. You're just honored to be there. And if you're at that table, I mean, you're going to walk humbly or carefully. You're going to be attentive. You're going to mind your manners. You might like dominate the table at your house, but you're not going to try to dominate this table. This table's about them. You might sort of take liberties at home. You got a belch, you just let her fly at home. You will stifle that thing with your last ounce of energy because that would just be totally inappropriate here. You're not going to at that table be like, yo, Steph, pass the curry. I always wanted to say that. No, not cool. You're going to be like just, deferential. You're probably not even going to ask for seconds because you'd have to interrupt the conversation. And what you're doing at this table, you're just taking it all in. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm here. I want to absorb this moment. I want to retain everything I can. This in some ways could be like a signature moment in my life. And I mean, especially think about like if you're a young, teenager who loves basketball, be like, this could be a transformative experience right here. I just want to take it all in. That's the idea behind walking humbly with our God. And it's not hard to do because He Himself is so very just and merciful and kind and humble. Jesus is the embodiment of Micah 6:8. It's not hard to attend to Him because look at how He attends to God and how He attends to us. Jesus, during His life and ministry, said, I only do and say what the Father gives me to do and say. But it's not just that Jesus is walking carefully with His Father. He's walking humbly and attentively with us. How many times did Jesus see people in need that others are passing by, but He stops and He attends to them? He hears the cry of the blind man. He honors the person with leprosy crying out unclean. This is Jesus for us. He loves kindness. He loves love and mercy. Ephesians 2 says, we were dead in our trespasses and sins, but God, being rich in mercy, and because of the great love with which He loved us, He made us alive even when we were dead. That's our Lord Jesus. And He saved us in an absolutely just manner. Listen, we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And there is no just judge who acquits the guilty. That would not be fair. That would not be justice. But God found a way with us because Jesus stood in our place. Jesus absorbed all that the law would sentence a sinner to. And He suffered the consequences of our sin. He took our death penalty. And He did it so that God, as Romans 3 says, might be both just and the justifier of those who have faith in Jesus, that God might justly pardon and justify us. This is our Lord Jesus. This is who we get to sit at the table with. And if you do come to Him as He's come to you, it will be a transformative experience. A young kid sitting at the table with the Golden State Warriors would aspire one day to be one of the Warriors. And young and old who sit at the table with Jesus will aspire to be more and more like Jesus. And they actually will be as they attend to Him. It'll be an ongoingly transformative experience. And Willowdale, you know what I love about us as a church, what I love about you, is in so many ways we see this transformative work. I mean, it's why Willowdale does what it does and why we have a precious reputation in the community of being so engaged, such a servant church. It's why we mentor and tutor students at the Garage and at Urban Promise. It's why we partner with the Crisis Pregnancy Center, why we foster and adopt children and have a ministry for that, why we care for people with disabilities and special needs. It's why we do projects with Good Neighbors Home Repair, because we think human beings created in God's image, they kind of deserve homes that are warmer, drier, safer, and more functional. So many of us enjoy those things. We want others to have them too. That's why on the global front, we're partnered with Hope International. Hope International basically brings capital and banking to the poorest of the poor, who have no banking services, who have no access to capital. Hope International helps them get it because it helps a life to be full and flourishing. It's why we've done Hands of Hope food distributions all through the pandemic. I don't know how many tons and tons, hundreds of tons of food over the last couple of years we've given to people, many who face food insecurity. It's an expression of the loving heart of God and His justice, His restorative justice in the world. We're doing a little relationship, a little project this summer with the AME Church in Kennett down on East Linden Street. It's a small congregation. Their building needs some repairs. We just want to humbly come alongside them and help them out. We're not calling the newspaper saying, look at what big Willowdale Chapel's doing for the little AME Church. No, we're just doing it with a handful of good-hearted people who are going to come alongside brothers and sisters in that congregation. And we just want to see that everybody is full and flourishing. And I just want to encourage you, if you're tangibly involved, keep going. If you're not, you might want to consider how would you serve in this outward mission of our church. I also want you to know as you give regularly and generously to Willowdale Chapel, you're empowering all this stuff. We're able to do these outward works of love and service in our community and around the world because we're just a bunch of generous givers who put our money together, just like in Acts 2. Nobody considered their own property their own. They just brought it, put it at the disciples' feet and said, let's serve the world together. Be generous with your church. It's all a part of living this good life together. And hey, maybe you could actually get creative in your own sphere or in your own vocation in a way that would bring restorative justice that, well, you might not even have conceived of yet. I want to just close by telling you a story. I told the story a couple of years ago, but it's just one of my favorites of recent years that I ever read. And it's a story of a doctor named Bill Thomas in New Berlin, New York. And Bill Thomas, a doctor, he was a young doctor. This story happens back in the 90s. And, he was in the ER and that's kind of this, like highly charged, adrenaline place. And he liked that work, but then he went into more like family medicine, but didn't always like the hours of that. But he was outdoorsy and he had a farm. And he's like, how can I get myself into a situation where I can do what I do, but like with like normal daytime hours? And he decided to take a job running a nursing home. The Chase Memorial Nursing Home in New Berlin, New York. And he went in, he takes this job, and he's immediately depressed. This place is just horrible. There's just a deadness in this place. He says it had 3 plagues: boredom, loneliness, and helplessness. And as he evaluated things, he realized, what's really missing in a nursing home filled with scores of human beings is life itself. It's like, we got to get some life into this place. And so he decides they're going to apply for a grant. And they're going to get some animals in the nursing home. Now, as soon as he even raises this idea, you got some people who've been there a lot longer than him, like, hey, we tried having a couple of rescue dogs in here before, it didn't work. It's like, well, I think we want to try it again. So we're going to apply for a grant that's going to allow us to get what we need here. And he says, let's start the application with 2 dogs. Like, nope, the regulations here say 1 dog max. He goes, all right, well, that's what they say, but let's have 2 dogs. We got 2 floors, let's have 2 dogs. Now, what about cats? What, you want to have cats and dogs together? That's ridiculous. He's like, yeah, but we not everybody likes dogs. Some people like cats. Let's get 4 cats. 4 cats? 2 dogs and 4 cats? Are you crazy? It's like, maybe, but let's just put that on the application. Now, what about birds? Birds? He goes, yeah, what do we hear all winter long here, especially in this dark kind of place? We hear loud TVs and moans from our patients and residents. We need some bird song in this place. So let's apply for birds. I know it's not even on the list of potential things, but just put down birds. And in fact, let's have 100 birds. And now, like, people's heads are about to explode. It's like, 100 birds? Are you kidding me? So like, just put it down. So they make this application, and lo and behold, they win the grant. And now all these animals are going to be coming their way. So it's like, they're going to get 100 birds. We're going to need 100 bird cages. They order 100 bird cages. They get delivered the day before the birds are coming, and they're all unassembled. So now everybody's working like all night long. Workers are there, they're bringing family members in. We got to assemble these bird cages. We got 100 birds coming tomorrow. And they bring the birds in, they bring the cats, the dogs in. And then they almost simultaneously, they replace all the artificial plants with living plants. And the place comes alive. People who had seemingly been nonverbal start talking. People who had before been non-ambulatory, they start walking. They come to the nurse's stations like, hey, I'll take the dog for a walk. It's like, well, we didn't even know you could walk. Well, there was something about injecting life into the system that brought these human beings, these image bearers, back to life. And in time, they put hens and rabbits outside. They planted flowers and vegetable gardens, and a whole new life, fullness and flourishing came to the Chase Memorial Nursing Home. Books and stories have been told about it. And it's one man's vision of something better, more rich, more full, more restorative than what he was seeing. Oh, Willowdale, if we got together, putting our own heads together, let alone our own spirits filled with God's Holy Spirit, what are the new things we could do that would be expressions of God's good life in us? Let's think about it. Let's talk about it. Let's dream about it. God is not done with our church or this world yet. Let's be on board with what He's all about. Thanks so much for being with us today. God bless you.
Thank you so much for being a part of our service today. If you're new to Willowdale Online, or if you've been tuning in for a while, we want you to know that we would love to see you in person. We gather as a church family every Sunday on both campuses at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. And if you're considering checking us out for the first time, you can actually plan your visit by clicking the I'm New button on our website. If you let us know that you're coming, we'll have someone from our hospitality team ready to greet you and show you around. And then also, if you haven't already done so, I want to invite you to download our app, where you can learn more about all the fun opportunities we have this summer for you to get connected into our community. So check that out as well. Now, as we close, let me encourage you with these words from St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. May this be our prayer as we pursue God's mission together. Have a great week.